Have you ever felt like a hamster spinning its wheel, giving a lot of effort but going nowhere? Are you wondering, how do you close the gap in your life from where you are to where you want to be? What if the answer wasn't in doing more, but in being more? If you're ready to close that gap, then stick around for this episode in its entirety. I'm Brad, the wellness guy and your podcast host. This is Live Happy, Healthy, and Inspired, the podcast that helps you live your happiest, healthiest, most inspired life. Today, I'm going to be talking about what does it take to close that gap in your life from where you are to where you want to be, and not necessarily with more hustle or more overwhelm. But instead, I'm going to talk about vision. Who is that highest self of you that you are meant to be? I'm also going to talk about mindset and the power of focus. Then I'm also going to talk about taking inspired action, that action that is aligned with who you are. I'm then going to talk about the two secret ingredients, the absolutely must have two secret ingredients to be successful on this journey. And then finally, at the end, I'm going to talk about the art of letting go, probably the most important principle of all five that I'll talk about today. Phew, that was a lot. Well, let's just dive right in and let's start with vision. Now, when I talk about vision, I'm not talking about having a vision of a successful company or something like that. That's a little bit different type of a vision. The vision I want to talk about today is that vision of who are you becoming? Who is that person that you desire to be? To give you an example, when I started my weight loss journey 15 years ago, I did not have a vision of who I wanted to be. And because of that, I kept gaining weight and losing weight. It wasn't until I adopted this vision of who I wanted to be, that I wanted to be a healthy person, that I finally lost the weight and kept it off permanently. So what this journey is really about when it comes to closing the gap is having that higher vision of who you want to be. Who is that person that you dream of being? To give you another example, I've worked with many life coaches from all walks of life. And recently, last year, I worked with a really well-known successful life coach. And in the beginning, she told us her story. And she said that she always dreamed about, and I'll use her words, of becoming this badass businesswoman. Never once did she dream about what the doing would be, what that would look like, but she always dreamed of being this badass businesswoman. Just as I did, I always dreamed, finally, when I established a vision, about being healthy. I didn't know what that would look like or how that would happen. She also didn't know what that would look like or how that would unfold in her life. Later on, about 2 years later, she learned that that would unfold in her life as a life coach. But she always held to that vision of being a badass businesswoman. I held to the vision of being a healthy person. And so what I want you now to do here today is to come up with that vision of who you want to be. Who do you want to be in your life 6 months from now, a year from now, 5 years from now? What type of person is that? And here's the key to all of this. Having the vision of who you want to be, that beingness, that's always the first part of your journey. That's always the first part of closing the gap from where you are to where you want to be. The byproduct then is always going to be the doing. The mistake that I made in the beginning, why I kept gaining the weight back, and the mistake that so many others make, is that they focus on the vision of the doing, but they don't have that vision of who they want to be. So again, the first part is have that vision, that higher aspect of who you want to be. For me, it was to be healthy. Later, that evolved into happy, healthy, and inspired. And now, as my journey continues, that vision I hold in my mind of that person I'm being, that person I want to become, is this idea of being a global wellness ambassador. That's another conversation for another time, exactly what that is. But the point is, I have that vision. Have that vision and then allow the doing to come naturally into place behind that. Allow the doing to be the byproduct of that vision for who you want to be. You can start with something very simple like I did. Have a vision simply to be a healthy person. What does that look like? Allow that to outplay in your life. Allow that to unfold in your life as it naturally will. Okay, let's move on now to the second aspect of closing the gap. The second aspect is this idea of mindset. And specifically about mindset is the power of focus, or simply just focus. What do I mean by that? Imagine for a moment there is a target. Every target has a bullseye. That's the bullseye that you are focusing on. But the question is, well, what is your bullseye? What is that focus that you have for you in your life? Go back to what I just talked about that higher vision for who you are being. That higher vision is your bullseye for that target. That's what you want to focus on. There's a very, very important principle in this whole crazy world of personal transformation and personal development and wellness. I can say wellness. And that principle is that what you focus on, you become. And so what is it that you're going to focus on? You're going to focus on being that higher vision of you. And that's what I had to do again in the early stages of my journey also. I had to focus on being a healthy person. And if something came into my life that did not support that vision of being healthy, for example, eating processed foods or eating sugar foods, that's how I was able to get rid of that. And that's how I was able to break those habits. And that's how I was able to form new habits, by staying focused on my higher vision. That's what's going to help you. Now, to train your mind, again, this takes practice. This doesn't happen overnight. It's a daily reminder of yourself. What is that higher vision I have for myself? Who am I becoming? It takes 1 to 5 minutes a day, just a gentle reminder to yourself, what is it that you're focused on? Who is that person that you're focused on becoming? If it helps, you can create a picture of whatever it is that you want to become, that higher person. Again, back to the example of the life coach that I worked with about a year ago, or I think it was 2 years ago. She kept a picture by her desk of a badass businesswoman. It wasn't her, but it always reminded her of who she was becoming. I used to keep pictures on my refrigerator at home of all these different healthy people, and it reminded me that I was becoming this healthy person. So again, to help you focus, cut out a picture, something like that. You can use Pinterest, any one of the social media apps today. But look at that picture daily and have it remind you, this is my journey. This is the person that I'm becoming right now. I know what it's like to struggle with weight loss, lack motivation, and feel lost with no purpose. I've been there. This was me, overweight, unmotivated, and battling low self-esteem. But I took back my life, and now I'm here to help you do the same. My book, Take Back Your Life, is your guide to breaking through these challenges. It's time to reclaim your health, motivation, and self-worth. Readers are saying, a life-changing guide helped me find my purpose and the boost I needed to transform. Start your journey today. Let's take back your life together. Just to share another example of this with you, why it's so important to focus on that person that you want to become. I just read this amazing blog, and it was about I think she's 66, 67-year-old woman now. And her entire life, she had dreamed of being an artist, of being this person that was an artist, going to art school and all of that. Her entire life, especially when she was college age in her early 20s, she was told, going to art school will be very expensive and you won't be able to make a good living as an artist. And so she listened to everything that society was telling her. But what her heart was telling her the entire time was that she always wanted to be an artist. And so finally, at the age of 67 years old, she sat down with her husband and they came up with a vision to make it happen. And now she's experiencing that joy that she's always been after, that peace that she's always been after, all of that. But not necessarily because she focused on doing this thing called art, but because she focused on being an artist. And so that's what I want you to do. And that's how you close the gap between where you are and what you really want to have your life be about, is again, you focus on being that person. Now, it took this artist until she was 67 to finally make that switch and start focus on being that person. Wherever you are in your life, if that is what works for you, then go ahead, do that if that's what works. But what I'm saying is if you can start focusing on being that higher version of yourself right now, that's going to make all the difference in your life. And that's what's going to help you live, as I say at the beginning, your happiest, healthiest, most inspired life. Now let's talk about the third thing, or the third ingredient that it takes to help you, again, close that gap in your life. And this ingredient is what I call inspired action, or following the nudge. Just as in the example I gave you about the artist, she finally listened to that nudge to go to art school. She sat down with her husband and they came up with a plan, both economically and time-wise, organizational-wise, how they could make that happen. The way you close the gap then is that you start to go inwards, internal. You have an internal voice in the form of a nudge, the form of a gut feeling. What is it telling you? Me and my life, this podcast, and all my social media posts, those are a perfect example. A little quick background on my story. I'll be very honest. This podcast, I have wanted to quit and give up on many times. That's a whole nother story why. Social media, I just have my professional page. You can check it out, Brad Carlson. I have a lot of posts on there now. I'm posting a lot recently. But for the longest time, I'm not going to lie, I wanted to quit and give up on all of that. But I had this nudge, this internal nudge that told me to keep going, keep doing the podcast, keep doing the post. Well, now jump ahead about 6 months later, I see my podcast numbers are growing more and more. I'm in 59 countries now. If you're listening, please share this. Help me get to 75 countries. That's my next immediate goal. But it's because I listened to that nudge. Again, closing the gap in your life and having that life that you really want is about taking that action based on what that nudge, based on what that feeling is telling you, that gut instinct, or what I like to call inspired action. When I listened to that, it told me to continue doing this podcast, and now my numbers are growing higher and higher. I was really happy to see that. I'm also doing more and more posting on social media. You will be very surprised if you look at my social media posting now from even 6 months ago. It's really taken on a whole new life, a whole new meaning. But that's only happening because I'm listening to my nudge. And that ability to listen to my nudge is based on that higher vision I have for myself of being this idea of a global wellness ambassador, and then continuing to focus on that. And I have my pictures on my cell phone right now. I have people like Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr. who were truly global ambassadors, and I just throw in the word wellness, global wellness ambassador, because that word didn't exist so much about 50, 60 years ago. But it's about listening to that internal feeling. When the artist in that blog I read did that, she finally wound up pursuing her passion, having that dream vision of being an artist. She's finally working on having that come true. Listen to that nudge. Take action based on what that nudge is telling you. That's what's going to help you close the gap. Another short story to share with you very quickly, this idea about taking action based on what that nudge is telling you, taking inspired action. My cousin, I have a cousin in Florida. I love her dearly, very, very much. We talk all the time. But I'll never forget this story that she told me one time. She woke up one day and she knew in her mind that she needed to get some car work done. She needed to have her car fixed and looked at. But she didn't know where to go. She didn't have a mechanic or anything like that. And she wasn't quite sure how to go about finding a mechanic and figuring all of that out. Well, in the meantime, she had this nudge come over her to wash her car that day. Very strange. I remember she telling me, she thought to herself that, why would I all of a sudden have this nudge to just wash my car when it didn't seem like her car needed washing. But anyway, she did what I'm telling you here. She took action based on that nudge. So she decided to listen to that nudge. So when you have that nudge, make sure you're listening to it and then take action based on what that nudge is telling you. So what my cousin did is she went down to the car wash to get her car washed. And in the process of drying her car, after she had already been through the car wash, she met a person that was basically in the stall next to her that was also drying his car. And he happened to have the exact same kind of car that my cousin did. Well, they struck up a conversation, and the next thing you know, this gentleman that she had just met is recommending a mechanic for my cousin to go and get her car fixed. Now, what are the odds of that? You can say that that was a purely coincidence, or you can also say there are no coincidences in the universe. But point being, she had a nudge and she listened to it and she took action based on that nudge. And lo and behold, she wound up getting a recommendation for a car mechanic, which she eventually did follow up on and get her car fixed. That's how you close the gap. Again, you listen to that nudge, you follow it and take action based on what it's telling you. Now, next, I want to talk about 2 secret ingredients. A lot of times in our journey, we don't talk about these 2 ingredients, these 2 secret ingredients, what I'm going to talk about, but they are paramount to your journey. Most people don't even realize that are at the highest levels of this game called life. They don't even realize that they have these 2 ingredients, and I'm just going to tell you what they are right now. The first one is determination. You must be determined and have that resolve to become that higher person. The story I mentioned earlier about the life coach who I've worked with, she is determined to be that badass businesswoman. And that in her journey has meant multiple mistakes, multiple failures, all of that. But she is determined to be that person. The other ingredient is commitment. Are you committed to being that higher vision of yourself? Are you committed to focusing on that vision of yourself, looking at that picture that you create every day? Are you committed to taking that action based on what that nudge is telling you? The early stages of my journey, I didn't have a lot of determination or commitment. It was only when I failed. If you know my entire story, you know the first year of my journey, I did not lose a single pound. Talk about massive failure. It's not like I lost 10 pounds and then gained it back. I didn't lose a single pound that first year of my journey. Well, what did that failure give me? It gave me a renewed sense of commitment and determination and focus to now, later on, I would learn, become this healthy person. You're going to have a very hard time without determination and commitment. Now, how do you get these 2 secret ingredients in your life? The easy way to be determined and focused is go back to the very first ingredient I mentioned about having that higher vision for who you are. If you have that higher vision, determination and commitment are going to automatically show up in your life because you're being pulled in that direction. You're being called in that direction. Now, if you're not doing this journey based on a higher vision of who you want to become, you're trying to push yourself and force yourself, then determination and commitment are going to be very, very difficult for you to come by. In that case, I would recommend a heavy, heavy dose of discipline. However, going the route of discipline is forcing yourself and forcing the journey. You want the journey to pull you. You want the journey to call to you. Just like the story I gave of the artist in the blog I read, she felt that calling in her heart to finally go back to art school, to be an artist. She had wanted it her whole life. She knew that. She just never listened to it until she was in her mid to late 60s. If your journey is rooted in sincere, genuine love of becoming this higher version of you, something that you feel in your heart, something that is calling you in your heart, that determination and commitment will be there because you want to keep going, keep pushing yourself because that's, you know, in your heart, that's where you're supposed to go. If you're not feeling it in your heart, if you don't feel like you're being called towards this thing or whatever it is, then you might want to hit the brakes, pause, and reassess and go back to that first ingredient, that higher vision for yourself. Otherwise, you're going to need a huge cup of discipline, and that's where it's going to be a struggle. In my case, I would lose the weight, gain the weight, lose the weight, gain the weight, lose the weight, gain the weight, because I didn't have that right vision, that higher vision for myself. Again, 2 secret ingredients, determination and commitment. Now, let's get to the last part of this journey, the last thing that I want to talk about for today, for this episode. And this is probably the most important ingredient because the one thing I've learned about this journey is you want to have fun with it. You want to enjoy it. You don't want this journey to be stressed out or frustrated or full of anxiety. And the way you make that happen is this last ingredient for today, and it's called letting go. I call it the art of letting go, the secret art of letting go. And what I mean by letting go is that you simply detach yourself. You simply become untied from your vision. You simply become untied from your goal, meaning that your joy of life is not depend on whether you achieve this goal or not. There's some bigger forces at work that I won't even try to get into right here on this episode. But the way that you become unattached, untied, untethered to your goal, and by the way, letting go, you have to have this if you're going to enjoy the ride. Otherwise, you're going to be full, as I was, of stress and nervousness and anxiety trying to reach your goal. Oh my gosh, this may or may not happen. The way you become untied, untethered, and the way you let go is very simply this. You simply know. You know, trust, have faith in your heart that this is meant to be for you in your life, that this is meant to happen. And you're going to know that or not. It's a feeling, and you're going to feel it deep down in your heart. Is this meant to be? Is this my journey? If you know that's the case, then you can very easily detach yourself from your vision, detach yourself from your goal, let it all go, and go on and enjoy your life. Because when you let it all go, believe it or not, the universe is going to start to line up stars for you and is going to bring things into your life to help you become that higher vision of you. When I was starting to become this version of me that was healthy, the universe started bringing me all kinds of books, all kinds of mentors, all kinds of coaches into my life that before I was struggling to find. I would go online and try to Google this or Google that. I was always trying to chase the vision, chase the journey. But when I understood my higher vision and I finally let go, that's when I started to manifest and things started to show up that allowed me to become this healthy person. Again, the way you let go is simply know in your heart this is your path and that you're meant to be. And if you don't have that feeling, you got to go all the way back then to the first ingredient about creating that higher vision for yourself. Who is that person that you want to be? And again, that's something you're going to feel in your heart. That higher vision of you is something that is calling to you. I can't fully explain it in my life either, but it's this idea of a global wellness ambassador. And part of what's shown up for me in my life, again, it's that nudge to keep doing the podcast. It's that nudge to keep creating all these social media posts. Those are 5 ingredients to help you close the gap from where you are to where you want to be. I hope you have enjoyed today's episode. If you have, if you would do me a solid, I would really, really, really appreciate this if you would share this episode with others. The more I can get this information out, the more we can help the world. That's my goal, to help as many people as possible around the world live their happiest, healthiest, most inspired life. You can help me out with that by sharing this episode, by recommending this podcast to your friends, your family, your colleagues, telling them all about this. I'm in 59 countries right now. I started out at 1 country, so in 4 years I've grown to 59 countries. My immediate next goal is 75 countries. So if you have friends in other countries than the one you're currently in, I would really appreciate if you would share this podcast with them and tell them about it. And while you're at it, if you would not mind leaving me a 5-star review, I would also appreciate that. And then finally, let me say, if you have any more questions, you can always visit my website at happyhealthyandinspired.com. I'm very easy to contact on social media, Facebook, Messenger. Just find my Facebook page and contact me at Messenger. That's the easiest way. I'm happy to help and support you on your journey in any way that I can. I'm always open for a quick 10-minute call, no charge, nothing like that for you. Just a quick discussion, just to kind of see where you are and assess things and go from there. Thanks so much for being here today and joining me on this episode. And until next time, live happy, healthy, and inspired.